night on Commorragh was absolute. Shadows clung to the spires like living things, twisting and coiling around the jagged architecture. The air itself seemed to hum with malice, thick with the screams of captives and the whisper of endless intrigue. This was the domain of the Drukhari, the Dark Elder, swift, merciless, and unpredictable. A lone river skimmer sliced through the black streets, engines barely a whisper over the constant chorus of distant agony. Riders perched atop it, blades glinting faintly under the pallid glow of the city's fractured lights. Every movement was deliberate, every turn calculated. Even here, in a city built on suffering, ordinary perception was not enough. One had to anticipate, to feel the intent behind every shadow. Inside the twisted towers, archons moved unseen, orchestrating chaos like a conductor with a malevolent symphony. Their eyes glinted, calculating the worth of every life that passed before them. A slave, terrified and trembling, stumbled through a hall. The sound of boots behind him signaled imminent capture. Fear was currency here, sharper than any blade, and the rivers thrived on it. From above, Tails-class warriors patrolled, their augmented bodies silent but lethal. They observed the streets with mechanical precision, ensuring that every prey, every captive, and every potential threat remained under control or under death. The Drukhari were predators and artists, painting with violence in strokes of terror and blood. A sudden alarm echoed, a ripple of discord across Commorragh's network of spies and informants. An Archon's command flared. A rival Kabbalah had encroached on their sector, and the hunt was on. Rivers veered sharply through the narrow skyways, engines shrieking in the confined city. Ordinary eyes would see chaos, but trained perception noticed patterns. Trap corridors, hidden snipers, the slow spiral of archways designed to ensnare the unwary. In the heart of the city, a group of combatants prepared ambushes. Bladed weapons gleamed, poison-tipped projectiles readied, and every movement was precise. The Drukhari thrived on the edge of cruelty, drawing terror from every encounter. Even as shadows pressed in from every angle, they remained confident, assured, unchallenged in their deadly grace. Slaves screamed in the distance, their cries a soundtrack to the predator's hunt. The rivers intercepted a group of rival warriors, their combat swift and decisive. Bolters and heat lances flashed briefly, followed by a silence that felt heavier than death itself. The victors moved on without hesitation. The fallen were merely obstacles, reminders of mortality in a city that embraced the immortal art of cruelty. Yet amidst this there was caution. An Archon never acted blindly. The city was alive with eyes and ears, rival Kabbalah and covens observing every move. A misstep could mean death, not for the opponent but for oneself. Ordinary vigilance would fail here. Survival required anticipation, manipulation, and the ruthless precision of the predator. Through narrow corridors and open spires, the rivers executed a coordinated strike on a rival warband. Explosions echoed faintly through the distance, smoke curling upward in ethereal threads. Their movement was a dance of shadows and death, a choreography of efficiency and fear. Every strike mattered. Every hesitation could be fatal. Hours passed, the city pulsating with the heartbeat of violence. No quarter was given, no mercy extended. Yet, even in this relentless torrent of cruelty, the Drukhari found art in precision. They were predators, sculptors of terror, and masters of the city's dark geometry. Ordinary fear was a tool shaped, directed, and unleashed. At the edge of a massive chasm, the river skimmer finally slowed. The city stretched endlessly, towers twisting into impossible angles, shadows moving like living creatures. The riders paused, momentarily observing the labyrinthine sprawl below. Victory had been claimed for now, rivals dispatched, and captives secured. Yet the city never slept. From the blackened sky, a faint shimmer of light reflected off distant obsidian spires, a reminder that Commorragh was alive, watching, and ever hungry. The Drukhari would vanish into shadows, their presence fleeting, and their impact enduring. For those who survived to witness them, the memory would linger, a whisper of fear and fascination intertwined. Tonight they were hunters. Tomorrow the city would demand more. Shadows would shift, alliances would fracture, and the cycle of cruelty and survival would continue. The Drukhari did not seek glory, nor honor, only the mastery of fear itself and the perfection of their deadly craft. And as the city sighed in darkness, the rivers vanished from sight, leaving silence heavier than the screams that had preceded them, an invisible mark etched upon the night. The spires of Commorragh reached skyward like jagged teeth, their tips shrouded in unnatural fog. The city was alive, not with life, but with intent. Every shadow could strike, every whisper might conceal a blade. The Drukhari moved through this deadly architecture with grace, their footsteps silent on the obsidian walkways, their eyes attuned to movement invisible to ordinary perception. Ravagers glided silently across the high bridges, engines barely whispering, scanning the darkened streets below. Their riders grinned, knowing that in this city, terror was currency, and mastery over it was power. Even the faintest misstep could be fatal, but the Drukhari thrived on that tension. They had learned patience, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. A contingent of Kabbalist warriors stalked their prey, a group of renegade slaves who had dared to flee deeper into Commorragh. The slaves ran through narrow corridors, but each step played into the predator's hands. Ordinary humans, fragile and unprepared, were easy to anticipate. The Drukhari knew the terrain intimately. Every twist, every spire, every shadow was mapped in their minds. One river leaped from a higher walkway, landing silently behind the fleeing slaves. A poisoned blade flashed, cutting off the path, and panic surged through the group. The Drukhari moved with precision, encircling, herding, and striking in rhythm with the chaos they created. The slaves' fear was tangible, feeding the hunters' resolve, shaping their actions with perfect timing. In the distance, the scream of a Tales-class warrior reverberated through the corridors. Its augmented limbs moved like liquid steel, each strike deliberate, unerring. Ordinary humans could not comprehend the speed or precision. They merely experienced the consequences. The rivers coordinated with the Tales, advancing systematically, ensuring no avenue of escape remained. The streets below flickered with traps and snares, glinting faintly under the ambient light. Hidden blades, spike pits, and poison darts. Every element was designed to instill terror, to manipulate fear, and to control the battlefield. Ordinary soldiers might hesitate, but the Drukhari thrived on hesitation. Every second wasted was another advantage. Another life ended before the prey even realized it was over. The slaves were cornered at the edge of a massive drop, the void yawning beneath them like a silent maw. Their options evaporated as the rivers closed in, the poisoned blades gleaming with cruel intent. One by one, the slaves fell, their cries echoing into the darkness. Victory was swift, precise, and merciless, a hallmark of the Drukhari. Yet, amidst the carnage, the Archon observed from a higher spire, orchestrating the hunt. Every move, every death, every scream was calculated to maintain dominance, to reinforce fear, and to solidify authority. Even the rivers understood that in Commorragh, obedience to the hierarchy was survival. The city demanded perfection, and imperfection was punished without hesitation. As the night deepened, the Archon's attention shifted to rival forces encroaching upon their sector. Dark Elder of a rival Kabbalah had begun moving through the spires, their presence subtle but undeniable. In Commorragh, confrontation was inevitable, and the hunt became as much about dominance as survival. The rivers adapted instantly, blending shadows with shadows, predators with predators, preparing to strike before their rivals could organize. Skimmers swooped between towers, engaging in rapid strikes, engines screaming in the confined cityscape. Blades flashed, bolters erupted in bursts of precision fire, and shadows shifted unpredictably. Ordinary observers would have perceived chaos, but the Drukhari orchestrated it with deadly finesse. Every movement had purpose, every strike had intent, and every scream was a tool to manipulate the outcome. The rival cable faltered, surprised by the coordination of the rivers. One by one, their leaders fell to precision strikes, the careful application of terror and skill proving decisive. The city remained under the control of the Archon, the predators unchallenged, yet ever aware that vigilance was the price of survival. At the height of Commorragh's spires, the Archon watched the city below, calculating the next move. The hunt had ended for tonight, but the war for control never ceased. Shadows shifted, and distant lights flickered, revealing that the city itself was alive with opportunity and danger. The Drukhari thrived in this environment, masters of terror, manipulation, and violence. In the quiet aftermath, the rivers regrouped, assessing the spoils of their hunt. Slaves were captured, rival operatives eliminated, and every street secured. The city breathed around them, a living entity of cruelty, darkness, and malice. The predators vanished into the labyrinthine spires, leaving only the faint echo of their presence. Ordinary humans, fragile in every sense, would feel the repercussions of this hunt for months, their fear lingering as a silent mark of power. Above, the Archon's laughter was low, deliberate, carrying over the empty streets. In Commorragh, victory was measured not by numbers, but by mastery, the ability to control fear, pain, and death with precision. Every night brought opportunity, every shadow concealed potential, and every predator waited patiently for the next hunt. And as the darkness settled fully over the city, Commorragh whispered its eternal promise. In these spires, only the cunning survived. Ordinary humans could not endure. Only the patient, ruthless, and merciless could claim the night as their own. Commorragh's spires rose like jagged teeth against the dark sky, each one a fortress, a palace, a death trap. But the true danger of the city was not its walls or traps, it was its people. In this realm of cruelty and cunning, alliances were fragile, and betrayal was an art form. The Drukhari thrived not only on the hunt but on manipulation, deception, and the intricate games of power. An Archon moved silently through the twisting corridors of a high tower, flanked by his loyal Kabbalist warriors. Every step echoed control, every gesture conveyed command. They passed chambers filled with captives, their terrified eyes reflecting torchlight like trembling mirrors. Fear was never incidental here. It was cultivated, refined, and wielded. The Archon paused briefly, surveying a map etched into the wall. Rival Kabbalah were maneuvering, and the perfect opportunity to strike had emerged. From above, river skimmers sliced through the shadows, engines silent except for the faintest whisper of movement. Riders communicated through subtle hand signals, adjusting formations, repositioning for precision strikes. Ordinary humans would see chaos. The Drukhari saw patterns, weaknesses, and leverage points. Every corridor, every spire, every shadow was mapped in the mind of a predator. Below, a rival Kabbalah attempted to consolidate power, unaware of the Archon's watchful eyes. Slaves were herded to strategic positions, their screams echoing through the streets, a subtle warning to any who might resist. The rivers moved like ghosts, striking suddenly, disappearing just as quickly. Bolter fire flashed, blades met flesh, and within moments, the rival's advantage dissolved. Every kill, every capture, every subtle act of terror reinforced the Archon's dominance. The Archon's lieutenant approached, whispering of a growing faction plotting rebellion within the cable. The Archon's eyes narrowed. Intrigue was as lethal as a blade in Commorragh. Plans were drawn, spies dispatched, and traps laid with meticulous care. Each action served a purpose, eliminating threats, securing power, and maintaining the delicate balance of fear that defined their society. In a narrow alley, Tail's warriors crouched, muscles tense, augmented limbs coiled like springs. Their targets, a small band of rebellious operatives, moved unaware of the danger. With a sudden burst, the Tails struck, precision overwhelming speed, and in the span of a heartbeat, the rebellion was quashed. Every movement was deliberate, every strike calculated, leaving no trace of hesitation or mercy. The Archon's personal chamber glowed faintly with the light of arcane devices. Here, the web of intrigue was woven in silence. whispers of dissent, manipulation of rival leaders, and careful orchestration of fear to ensure loyalty. Ordinary humans, or even lesser beings of the galaxy, could never navigate such complexity. Only the patient, the cunning, and the ruthless survived in this deadly labyrinth. A warning flared from the outer spires. Another Kabbalah had moved into the sector, seeking to exploit the chaos. The Archon smiled thinly. Every threat was an opportunity, every betrayal a tool. Orders were dispatched with precision. Rivers intercepted supply lines, slaves were relocated to distract, and poison-tipped projectiles were readied for silent assassinations. The city itself was a weapon, and the Archon its master. Through the streets, shadows flickered unnaturally as Drukhari moved unseen. The hum of distant engines, the faint shimmer of warp energy, and the whisper of unseen blades created a symphony of tension. Ordinary humans would feel terror here, but the Drukhari thrived on it, shaping it, directing it, making fear a tangible extension of their will. Hours passed in this intricate dance of death and deception. Rivals were neutralized with elegance, slaves redirected to serve multiple purposes, and the Kabbalah's dominance over the sector was reaffirmed. Every act of cruelty was precise, measured, and purposeful, reinforcing the hierarchy and the dominance of the Archon. As night deepened, the city seemed almost to breathe, shifting and twisting in response to the actions of its inhabitants. The rivers regrouped atop a spire, observing the labyrinth below. Rival Kabbalah had been destabilized, rebellion suppressed, and the Archon's control strengthened. Yet even in this apparent victory, vigilance remained paramount. In Commorragh, the moment one relaxed was the moment death found them. The Archon looked out across the endless spires, a faint glimmer of satisfaction in his eyes. The hunt for dominance had been successful tonight, but tomorrow would demand renewed cunning, new schemes, and continued mastery of terror. The web of intrigue was endless, and only the patient, ruthless, and precise could maintain control. In the darkness, the rivers vanished, leaving the spires empty but haunted. Ordinary humans, fragile and mortal, would never truly understand the power and danger of Commorragh. Only the predators, only the Drukhari, could navigate these heights, these shadows, and the endless games of deception that defined their lives. And in that silence, the Archon's laughter echoed faintly, a reminder that in Commorragh, power was measured not by strength alone, but by cunning, precision, and the relentless orchestration of fear. Tonight, the city had yielded to the masters of shadow, but the next dawn promised new challenges, new hunts, and the continuation of a never-ending dance of death. The air in Commorragh vibrated with pain. Screams echoed faintly through twisting alleys, reflecting off obsidian walls, merging with the whispers of those who had been broken long before. In this city, suffering was not incidental. It was art, currency, and a tool wielded by the merciless. The Drukhari thrived here, shaping agony into strategy, fear into dominance, and despair into power. A raider skimmer drifted along a narrow skyway, its hull glinting under the eerie luminescence of the city's fractured lights. Its riders, Kabbalist warriors, moved with silent precision. Every glance, every subtle gesture, communicated intent and expectation. They were hunters, sculptors of terror, their prey not only other factions but also the weak souls caught in Commorragh's endless machinery of torment. Below, in the twisting alleys, slaves cowered and wept, stumbling over debris in desperate flight. The city's predators moved like shadows, cutting off escape routes, herding victims toward waiting rivers. Ordinary humans, unaccustomed to such cruelty, were hopelessly outmatched. Fear was their language now, and the Drukhari spoke it fluently. In a high spire chamber, an Archon observed the unfolding hunt. His eyes glinted as he studied the city, calculating every possible outcome. The rival Kabbalah had been weakened in prior strikes, but pockets of resistance remained. Every moment was an opportunity, every misstep a chance to solidify power further. The Archon's mind worked like a predator weaving its trap. Anticipation, manipulation, and precision in equal measure. A Tails warrior advanced silently, augmented limbs moving fluidly over broken walkways. The sound of its approach was imperceptible, yet each movement was deliberate, each strike a calculated act of terror. Below, a group of escaped slaves froze as the shadow of the tails fell over them. Within moments, resistance was extinguished, screams cut off by blades that moved faster than perception could track. Every action was precise. Every reaction had been predicted in advance. The Archon's communication devices flickered as reports came in. Rivals had begun consolidating forces, attempting to reclaim territory within the spires. The predators of Commorragh adjusted, intercepting supply routes, blocking narrow passages, and setting ambushes with meticulous timing. Ordinary soldiers, if they attempted such coordination, would falter. The Drukhari did not falter. Every operation, no matter how small, served the larger design of dominance. From a hidden perch, rivers observed the battlefield. Slaves were manipulated, rival operatives eliminated, and chaos maintained, but only as long as it served the predator's goals. The city itself seemed to bend to the Archon's will, corridors shifting in perception, shadows deepening where advantageous, light glinting off blades to distract and mislead. One squad cornered a rogue war band, forcing them into a labyrinth of twisting corridors designed to disorient. Traps were deployed silently. Poison darts, snapping claws, hidden spikes. Panic rose, and the Drukhari's artistry manifested fully. Fear was controlled, precise, and lethal. By the time the rogue operatives understood the danger, it was already too late. Yet, even in this orchestrated chaos, caution remained. Commorragh was a city of unpredictable dangers. Rival Kabbalah, hidden snipers, warp-tainted anomalies, they could strike at any moment. The Archon's eyes never wavered from the spires, scanning for imperfections in the web of control. Survival in this city demanded vigilance, ruthlessness, and a cold understanding that mercy was weakness. As the hours bled into the void of night, the city seemed to hum with tension. The rivers regrouped atop a massive spire, observing the sprawling labyrinth below. Captives were secured, rival forces diminished, and the Archon's dominion reinforced. Yet even in victory, the predators remained alert, knowing that in Commorragh, no success was permanent. The city demanded adaptation, cunning, and constant refinement of tactics. The Archon's laughter echoed faintly across the spires, low and deliberate. It was not a laugh of joy, but a declaration. In Commorragh, only the cunning survived, only the ruthless thrived, and only the masters of fear could claim their place among the predators. As the first tendrils of warp energy shimmered faintly across the horizon, the predators moved on, disappearing into the shadows of their city. Ordinary humans would wake to the aftermath, feeling only the residual terror, never understanding the mechanisms behind it. The Drukhari thrived in these gaps of comprehension, using fear itself as a weapon and mastery of it as a mark of supremacy. Tonight, the hunt had sculpted order from chaos, precision from panic, and dominance from the fragile threads of mortality. The city remained alive, ever hungry, ever dangerous, but under the hand of the Archon and his warriors. It was a canvas perfected, a symphony of shadows conducted with lethal artistry. The city of Commorragh pulsed like a living thing, each spire a vein carrying the dark lifeblood of the Drukhari's dominion. Tonight, it was more than the hum of engines or the whispers of captives. It was the culmination of strategy, cruelty, and lethal artistry. Every corridor was mapped, every shadow calculated, every scream anticipated. The predators moved in perfect synchronization. From a high perch, a river observed the streets below. Tiny shapes, escaped slaves, rogue operatives, and rival warriors darted through the twisting alleys. The city itself seemed to funnel them, as if alive, guiding the prey toward inevitable confrontation. The rivers adjusted position, blades glinting faintly in the sparse light. Patience was as vital as speed. The Drukhari struck with precision, not haste. Inside a spire chamber, an Archon orchestrated the next phase of domination. Reports of rival Kabbalah reached him, along with intelligence about shifting alliances and traitorous whispers. Every word, every action, every movement was measured. Even a whisper could spark a chain reaction. The Archon's hand moved over a whole map, deploying squads with meticulous accuracy, ensuring control of every route, every crossing, and every potential threat. Rival Kabbalah forces attempted to regroup, unaware that they were already walking into a carefully constructed trap. Hidden snares, poisoned projectiles, and rivers' ambushes awaited. The city itself seemed to conspire with the predators, corridors bending perception, lights guiding attention away from lethal pathways. Fear became both weapon and map, and every calculated strike reinforced the Archon's absolute authority. A Tails-class warrior moved silently along the outer walkways, its augmented limbs a blur of motion. Its target, a band of rebellious operatives hiding among shattered spires. With a sudden burst, it descended, limbs slicing through armor and flesh in an execution of absolute precision. Ordinary humans would never have seen it coming. The Drukhari's actions were always faster, sharper, and more efficient than comprehension allowed. The Archon's laughter echoed faintly through the high towers, low and deliberate. It was not joy, it was a statement of control, dominance, and mastery over life and death. The city's pulse seemed to respond, twisting in rhythm with the predator's movements, shadows deepening as if obeying a silent command. Every corner of Commorragh bore the mark of the hunt, and every living thing understood, in some instinctual way, the danger that moved among them. Rivers descended upon the streets, swift as shadows, cutting off avenues of escape. Captives screamed, rivals fell, and the architecture itself became a tool in the predator's arsenal. Ordinary humans, fragile and fleeting, were guided by fear, herded into traps, and executed with precision that was almost beautiful in its cruel efficiency. The hunt was art, and the Drukhari were masters of its creation. Yet even amidst victory, the Archon remained vigilant. Commorragh was unpredictable. Rival cabals, warp anomalies, and the city's own labyrinthine nature demanded constant attention. Every movement was monitored, every alliance tested, and every potential threat neutralized before it could materialize. In this city, mistakes were fatal, and perfection was the only path to survival. Through the corridors, the shadows moved like liquid darkness. Poisoned blades flashed, ropes and nets ensnared, and the faintest whisper of sound drew the unwary into death's embrace. The river's tactics were flawless, each strike choreographed with terrifying efficiency. The prey had no chance, and even if survival was briefly achieved, it was temporary. Fear lingered, marking the memory as indelibly as any wound. From the pinnacle of a massive tower, the Archon surveyed the aftermath. Rival forces had been eliminated or scattered, captives secured, and the city under his complete influence, for now. Commorragh's endless night awaited, promising more hunts, more intrigue, and more cruelty. But tonight, the predator had claimed supremacy, leaving only echoes of terror behind. As the rivers disappeared into shadowed spires, the Archon's gaze fell upon the horizon. Distant lights shimmered faintly in the unnatural darkness, hinting at the next challenge, the next prey, the next betrayal. The city would never sleep, and neither would the predators who ruled it. Every corner held danger, every shadow opportunity, and every scream a tool to maintain control. And so, Commorragh's night continued, alive with whispers, fear, and the silent, deadly dance of the Drukhari. Ordinary humans would never understand the elegance of cruelty, the artistry of terror, or the precision of predators in their domain. But they would remember it, fleetingly, hauntingly, painfully. Tonight, the predators had prevailed. Tomorrow, the hunt will resume. Commorragh was a living nightmare, a city whose walls twisted like the tendrils of a great predator. Every corner, every shadow, every flicker of light concealed danger. For the Drukhari, this was home, an endless labyrinth of pain, terror, and opportunity. They moved through it as though it were an extension of themselves, every step deliberate, every glance filled with predatory calculation. A raider skimmer drifted silently above the streets, carrying Kabbalist warriors who had perfected the art of hunting in absolute darkness. Engines whispered over the twisted rooftops, blending with the distant screams of captives, the shrieks of rival Kabbalah, and the faint hum of warp energies. Ordinary perception was useless here. Survival demanded instinct honed to perfection. On the streets below, escaped slaves and rebellious operatives scrambled for safety. Every movement was predicted, every path anticipated. Rivers leapt from high walkways, poisoned blades flashing, herding the prey like livestock toward waiting traps. The city itself seemed to conspire with them, guiding the unworthy into corridors lined with death. In a shadowed spire, an Archon watched, his eyes calculating, measuring, commanding. He had seen the patterns, understood the rival Kabbalah's weaknesses, and manipulated every factor to his advantage. Even a whispered threat from a subordinate or the tremor of a frightened captive became a tool in the orchestration of terror. Each action reinforced his dominance. Each reaction sharpened the blade of control. Talos warriors moved with unnerving precision, limbs augmented to strike faster than the eye could follow. One leapt silently from a balcony, crushing an unsuspecting operative between steel and shadow before vanishing again. Ordinary humans would never understand the speed, the accuracy, or the cold artistry of these predators. Fear was both weapon and shield, shaping outcomes as effectively as any blade. The Archon's strategy extended beyond brute force. Ambushes were planned, misdirection implemented, and the city's labyrinthine structure used to isolate, confuse, and destroy adversaries. Corridors twisted unnaturally, shadows deepened strategically, and distant lights guided attention away from lethal paths. In Commorragh, reality bent to the will of the predator. Through twisting alleys and narrow skyways, rivers pursued the fleeing remnants of rival forces. Bolters cracked in staccato bursts, blades cut with surgical precision, and screams echoed, fading into the darkness as victims were claimed. The predators worked in harmony, a deadly symphony orchestrated with perfect timing. Every second of hesitation was exploited, every sign of panic magnified to control outcomes. Yet even in victory, the Archon remained vigilant. Commorragh was a city of unpredictability. Traps laid by rivals, anomalies of the warp, and hidden operatives demanded constant awareness. Every corner held potential threat, every shadow potential death. Survival in this city required more than skill. It demanded foresight, ruthlessness, and mastery over fear itself. The rivers regrouped atop a jagged spire, surveying the sprawling maze below. Captives were secured, rival warriors eliminated, and the Archon's influence reinforced. But no predator rested for long in Commorragh. The labyrinth of pain promised new challenges at every turn, new hunts, and the continual sharpening of lethal skill. From the pinnacle, the Archon's laughter drifted across the empty streets, low and deliberate. It was a proclamation. Power in Commorragh was earned through mastery of cruelty, precision in violence, and the orchestration of terror. Every night, every hunt, every calculated act solidified supremacy, leaving only echoes of fear in the hearts of those who survived. As warp energy shimmered faintly across the horizon, the predators melted into the shadows, leaving the city breathing silently beneath them. Ordinary humans would awaken to the aftermath, aware only of what was lost, never understanding the mechanisms of control and power that had shaped the night. The Drukhari were invisible architects of suffering, their presence felt but rarely seen. Commorragh's night continued, alive with whispers, shifting shadows, and the latent promise of pain. The predators had claimed this night, shaping it in their image, but the city demanded eternal vigilance. Every spire hid opportunity and danger alike. Only the patient, ruthless, and cunning could navigate its depths and emerge unscathed. Tonight, the labyrinth had been mastered, but tomorrow would demand renewed calculation, fresh hunts, and continued perfection of cruelty. The predators of Commorragh thrived on this cycle, shaping fear, refining strategy, and executing death with lethal artistry. The city itself seemed to sigh, acknowledging their dominance yet warning that the game was far from over. And as silence reclaimed the streets, the rivers vanished, leaving only the weight of anticipation, the lingering scent of fear, and the unbroken pulse of Commorragh. A city of endless night, endless pain, and endless predators. Commorragh's spires loomed above like jagged teeth, their blackened surfaces catching faint glimmers of ambient light. The city was alive, not with life, but with intent. Shadows moved with purpose, corridors twisted unnaturally, and every corner hid threats both visible and unseen. Here, the Drukhari ruled not merely by strength, but through terror, cunning, and a mastery of subtle domination. At the heart of a massive spire, an Archon surveyed the sprawling city below. The rival Kabbalah had been weakened in previous strikes, but remnants persisted, hiding in corners and narrow alleyways. The rivers and Kabbalist warriors under his command were already moving into position, shadows blending seamlessly with shadows, each strike calculated to reinforce supremacy. A raider skimmer glided silently above the streets, carrying squads of lethal warriors. Engines emitted only a faint hum, barely audible over the whispers of the city and the cries of captives below. Every movement was precise. Every step of the rivers was choreographed. Ordinary humans, unaccustomed to such lethal fluidity, would have been paralyzed by fear. In the twisting alleys, Tail's warriors advanced like specters of death. Augmented limbs allowed them to strike with unerring precision, slicing through armor and flesh alike before the prey could react. Panic spread like a contagion among escaped slaves and rogue operatives, herding them exactly as planned into prepared ambushes. Fear itself was a weapon, wielded as skillfully as any blade. The Archon's mind worked in tandem with the city's chaos. Intelligence reports arrived from hidden sensors, whispering networks, and loyal spies embedded in rival factions. Every report was analyzed, every threat assessed, and every opportunity exploited. In Commorragh, strategy was not simply about offense. It was about control, manipulation, and maintaining dominance through the orchestration of fear. One squad of rivers cornered a small band of rebels at the edge of a narrow skyway. With a swift motion, they closed off all escape routes, poisoned blades gleaming. Bolter fire erupted from concealed positions, forcing the prey into a trap from which survival was impossible. The city itself seemed to participate, guiding panic toward premeditated ends. The hunt was complete, flawless, and terrifyingly beautiful. Yet the Archon's vigilance never waned. Commorragh was unpredictable. Even a single miscalculation could unravel hours of meticulous planning. Hidden snipers, rival cable agents, and warp-tainted anomalies demanded constant awareness. The predators moved as if part of the city itself, anticipating danger, exploiting weakness, and eliminating threats before them fully materialized. In a high chamber above the main streets, the Archon convened his lieutenants. Plans for the next phase of the campaign were drawn, strategies for consolidation mapped, and contingencies prepared for every eventuality. Loyalty was tested continuously. Betrayal was punished swiftly. In Commorragh, power was maintained not only through skill but through the relentless enforcement of fear and obedience. Rivers moved silently through corridors, guiding captives, intercepting messages, and neutralizing minor threats. Tail's warriors patrolled elevated walkways, limbs shimmering with lethal energy, ensuring that no misstep went unnoticed. Ordinary humans, fragile and unprepared, would never perceive the subtle orchestration behind the apparent chaos. The Archon's laughter carried faintly across the spires, low and deliberate. It was a sound devoid of joy, rich instead with authority, menace, and the knowledge of control. Every death, every scream, every subtle act of cruelty reinforced his dominance, a reminder that in Commorragh, only the cunning survived, and only the ruthless thrived. Hours passed as the city remained a symphony of shadows, strategy, and precision. Rival forces were neutralized or scattered, captives were secured, and the Archon's control remained unchallenged. Yet the predators understood that victory in Commorragh was never permanent. The city demanded constant adaptation, renewed strategy, and endless vigilance. From atop the tallest spire, the Archon surveyed the horizon. Distant lights flickered faintly in the eternal darkness, hinting at new challenges, potential prey, and the continuation of a game that never ended. The predators of Commorragh would continue their hunt, refining their craft, perfecting their control, and using fear as both weapon and shield. As silence reclaimed the lower streets, rivers disappeared into the shadows, leaving only the echoes of their passage and the lingering terror in the minds of those who had witnessed it. Ordinary humans would awaken, feeling only what had been lost, never comprehending the precision, cunning, or cruelty that had orchestrated the night. Commorragh remained alive, shifting and whispering, an endless maze of pain, opportunity, and predation. The Drukhari thrived in its depths, sculpting fear into dominance, despair into obedience, and shadows into lethal instruments. Tonight, supremacy had been reaffirmed. Tomorrow, the hunt would resume, and the cycle of terror, mastery, and survival would continue unabated. Commorragh was alive in ways that defied comprehension. Its spires twisted unnaturally into the night sky, corridors wound like serpents, and shadows moved with sentience. For the Drukhari, this city was not merely a home. It was a tool, a weapon, and a stage upon which their artistry of terror played out. Every surface, every echo, every faint glimmer of light could be turned to their advantage. The Archons stood atop a towering spire, surveying the chaos below. The rival Kabbalah had regrouped, attempting to consolidate forces, but the predators of Commorragh had anticipated this. Rivers patrolled the streets, silent as phantoms, cutting off escape routes and isolating pockets of resistance. Ordinary humans, if they dared wander here, would be consumed by fear before understanding what struck them. Below, Tail's warriors glided along the narrow walkways, augmented limbs moving with unnatural precision. One landed silently behind a group of fleeing operatives, blades flashing in deadly arcs. The prey barely had time to react. Screams were cut short, and shadows reclaimed the empty corridors almost instantly. Every movement was calculated, every strike an expression of lethal artistry. The Archon's command was absolute. Every squad knew their role, every rivers anticipated the movements of both allies and enemies, and every action reinforced the network of control that spanned the spires and alleys. The city itself seemed to bend to their will, lights reflecting where needed, shadows deepening to conceal predators, and the architecture guiding panic toward premeditated traps. Within a chamber high in a twisting tower, the Archon reviewed reports from loyal spies. Data on rival forces, potential rebellions, and weak points were meticulously analyzed. Every whisper of dissent, every minor skirmish, and every shift in allegiance became part of the larger strategy. For the Drukhari, knowledge was power, and terror was the tool with which it was enforced. Rivers struck again, intercepting a small band of rebels attempting to flee through an unguarded corridor. Bolter fire echoed briefly, blades flashed, and within moments, the operatives were neutralized. The city absorbed the echoes of panic, shifting subtly in response to the predator's orchestration. Fear itself was a currency here, and every action reinforced the Archon's dominance. Tail's warriors patrolled from above, limbs augmented with implants and blades, their presence an invisible threat. They were both hunters and sentinels, ensuring that no one moved unnoticed, and no rebellion could fester. Ordinary humans, unprepared and fragile, could never hope to comprehend the precision and coordination of these predators. The Archon's eyes narrowed as he observed the city below. Even in apparent calm, threats lingered. Hidden operatives, rival Kabbalah, and warp-tainted phenomena could disrupt plans if left unchecked. Vigilance was eternal. Patience and precision were paramount. In Commorragh, a moment's complacency meant death. From distant spires, rivers coordinated silently, using hand signals and subtle cues. Ambushes were set, escape routes blocked, and fear magnified at every turn. The city became a theater of terror, every alleyway a stage, every shadow a participant in the intricate dance of death. Ordinary humans would only perceive fragments, never understanding the full symphony of predation orchestrated above and around them. Hours passed as the hunt continued. Rival forces were scattered, captives secured, and the Archon's supremacy reaffirmed. Yet in Commorragh, no victory was permanent. The city demanded adaptation, cunning, and a relentless commitment to control. Every night presented new prey, new challenges, and new opportunities to refine mastery over fear. The Archon's laughter rang faintly across the spires, low and deliberate, a sound devoid of joy but full of authority. It was a reminder. In Commorragh, power was earned through cruelty, precision, and intelligence. The predators moved through shadows, shaped by terror, and defined by ruthless skill. As the first hints of warp energy shimmered across the horizon, rivers melted back into the city's labyrinth. Ordinary humans would awaken only to echoes of what had transpired, never comprehending the precision, coordination, or cruelty that had unfolded. The Drukhari thrived in these gaps of perception, shaping fear into dominance, despair into obedience, and shadows into instruments of power. Commorragh remained alive, endless in its night, infinite in its complexity, and eternal in its promise of terror. The predators had claimed this cycle, but the city promised new hunts with each passing hour. Patience, cunning, and ruthlessness would remain the only means to survival and mastery in the web of shadows. Tonight, the hunt concluded. Tomorrow, it would resume, and the city, ever hungry, would continue to demand tribute in fear, loyalty, and suffering. Commorragh never slept. Its spires stretched into darkness, sharp as jagged obsidian, twisting unnaturally as though reaching for some impossible horizon. In its alleys and corridors, shadows shifted with intention. For the Drukhari, this city was both battlefield and hunting ground, each movement calculated, each strike choreographed, and each scream carefully anticipated. High above the streets, an Archon observed the city below. The rival Kabbalah had begun attempts to reclaim lost territory, unaware that every path they took, every move they made, had already been accounted for. Rivers and Kabbalist warriors moved like extensions of the Archon's will, weaving through streets, leaping across rooftops, and striking with lethal precision. Fear was their tool, obedience their weapon, and survival the illusion that prey clung to for moments that would never last. In the narrow corridors, Tail's warriors patrolled silently. Their augmented limbs moved with uncanny fluidity, blades slicing through armor and flesh before their targets could register movement. Captives, rebels, and rival operatives all fell under the predator's gaze. Panic spread faster than the river's blades could strike. The city itself seemed to conspire in amplifying every fear, bending perception to funnel victims into traps. The Archon's mind was a network of strategy, every report analyzed, every rumor weighed, and every action plotted. Surveillance drones, spies, and loyal operatives fed him information continuously. Even whispers were calculated, as secrets and betrayals could disrupt the delicate balance of power in Commorragh. Knowledge was as deadly a weapon as any blade. Fear sharpened it further, shaping outcomes before the prey could act. A raider skimmer glided silently over a shadowed plaza, carrying a squad of rivers. Engines hummed faintly, blending with the distant wails of captives. Below, rival Kabbalah attempted to regroup, but escape was impossible. Pathways shifted subtly, ambushes were perfectly positioned, and every predator moved in sync with another. The city itself was a maze designed to trap, confuse, and terrify. Suddenly, a Tail's warrior descended from above, limbs flashing with blinding speed. One rival operative barely had time to register the attack before being torn from the walkway, swallowed by shadow and steel. The predators executed each move with artful precision. Every scream, every hurried breath, every fleeting hope of escape was manipulated, measured, and extinguished in perfect rhythm. The Archon's laughter echoed faintly across spires, low and commanding, a sound of authority and menace. It was not joy but a proclamation. Supremacy in Commorragh required intelligence, patience, and mastery of cruelty. Each victory reinforced dominance, each death cemented fear, and each calculated move strengthened the predator's grip on the city. Within the twisting labyrinth of corridors, rivers intercepted fleeing captives, herding them into prepared ambushes. Poisoned weapons, snapping traps, and hidden blades ensured no chance of survival. Ordinary humans, unprepared for the precision and coordination of these hunters, succumbed quickly, their screams becoming part of the city's constant chorus of terror. Yet the Archon knew that vigilance could never lapse. Commorragh's unpredictability was its constant challenge. Hidden rival operatives, warp anomalies, and treacherous terrain required continuous adaptation. Every night demanded calculation, every hunt demanded patience, and every strike demanded perfection. Only through relentless observation and execution could supremacy be maintained. The predators moved seamlessly, shadows flowing into shadows, orchestrating panic and fear with deadly artistry. Tails warriors maintained patrols above, ensuring no movement went unseen, while rivers cut off escape routes, isolated prey, and enforced absolute control. The city became a stage for the dance of predators, each movement precise, each strike choreographed, each scream part of the symphony. As the hours passed, the Archon's forces consolidated their hold. Rival forces were scattered, captives secured, and pathways of control reinforced. The city's pulse, ever present, seemed to acknowledge the predator's dominance. Yet even as victory appeared complete, the Archon's mind remained alert, anticipating the next threat, the next challenge, the next opportunity to refine the lethal artistry of fear and control. Commorragh's night stretched on, alive with whispered terror, hidden maneuvers, and the faint hum of engines moving silently across spires. The predators had claimed the cycle, but the city promised more. More prey, more intrigue, more lessons in fear and obedience. Patience, precision, and ruthlessness remained the only path to survival and mastery in this labyrinth of endless night. From the highest spire, the Archon's eyes scanned the horizon, noting the faint shimmer of warp energy in the distance. It was a reminder. Commorragh never rested, never surrendered, and never forgave. The predators must remain eternal shadows, invisible architects of agony and fear, shaping every action, controlling every reaction, and maintaining supremacy in a city that demanded nothing less. As silence reclaimed the streets, rivers vanished into the shadows, leaving only echoes of terror behind. Ordinary humans would awaken, feeling fear and loss but understanding nothing of the precision, planning, and artistry that had orchestrated the night. The Drukhari thrived in this unseen space, shaping power from terror, dominance from fear, and shadows into weapons of unmatched lethality. Tonight, the dance of predators concluded, but tomorrow, it will begin again. The city of Commorragh exhaled its eternal darkness, a suffocating blend of shadow, steel, and whispered terror. Its spires clawed at the warped sky, bending unnatural light into narrow shafts that illuminated only what the predators wished to be seen. Every alley, every corridor, every high walkway was a potential death trap. And tonight, the hunters ruled supreme. The Archon stood atop a towering spire, his gaze fixed on the labyrinthine streets below. Intelligence reports had indicated that remnants of rival Kabbalah were attempting to reclaim territory. But the predators had anticipated every movement. Rivers and Tails warriors moved in perfect synchrony, unseen and unheard, directing prey into ambushes and executing strikes with surgical precision. Fear was not just a tool, it was the framework of their strategy. A raider skimmer glided over a congested plaza, engines whispering rather than roaring. Its cargo of Kabbalist warriors moved like shadows, descending upon targets with lethal fluidity. Ordinary humans and captives scurried blindly through corridors, unaware that every step was being guided by unseen predators. Every alley led somewhere calculated, every rooftop a vantage point for death. In the twisting streets, rivers emerged from shadowed corners, blades gleaming in muted light. One group trapped a band of fleeing operatives in a narrow passage, cutting off escape with precision. Bolters erupted, poisoned weapons flashed, and screams reverberated faintly against the black walls. Each action reinforced the Archon's dominance, each strike a reminder of the consequences of venturing too far into Commorragh's depths. Talos warriors patrolled high above, augmented limbs moving with terrifying speed. Their strikes were precise, their movements silent, and their efficiency unmatched. Ordinary humans could only perceive fragments. A shadow darting, a scream silenced, a body gone before the mind could comprehend. The Drukhari had perfected fear, turning it into both weapon and control mechanism. The Archon's mind worked as one with the city, analyzing every report, predicting every threat, and orchestrating the perfect hunt. Spies, censors, and loyal operatives fed him intelligence, each whisper and rumor dissected and incorporated into strategy. Even the faintest sign of betrayal was calculated, neutralized before it could disrupt the delicate web of control. A sudden flash of movement drew attention to a rival Kabbalah attempting to regroup on a high walkway. Rivers descended from above, slicing through defenders with fluid brutality. The remaining forces faltered, disoriented by the precision of the attack. The city itself seemed to funnel the prey, every corridor guiding panic toward the inevitable. Each failure, each death, each scream was a lesson in dominance and fear. From the pinnacle of a jagged spire, the Archon observed as the last pockets of resistance were extinguished. Rivers secured captives, Tails warriors patrolled, and the city's labyrinthine structure ensured that no adversary could slip through unnoticed. Commorragh's pulse mirrored that of its predators. Calculated, lethal, and eternal. Yet the Archon's vigilance did not waver. Commorragh's unpredictability demanded eternal awareness. Warp anomalies, hidden adversaries, and rival Kabbalah trickery could unravel even the most meticulously crafted strategy. The predators must remain relentless, patient, and precise. Only through total mastery of fear, control, and cruelty could supremacy endure. The rivers moved through shadows, guiding terrified captives, intercepting messages, and neutralizing hidden threats. Tails warriors maintained patrols above, their limbs a blur of mechanical and lethal precision. The city itself became an instrument of control, shaping fear and enforcing obedience through an unseen network of terror. The Archon's low, deliberate laughter echoed across spires, a proclamation of power rather than amusement. It resonated through the labyrinth, a reminder that supremacy in Commorragh was earned through intelligence, patience, and ruthless execution. Every death reinforced authority, every panic-stricken reaction solidified dominance, and every calculated act ensured that the predators remained unchallenged. Hours passed as the city remained a theater of shadows, strategy, and precision. Rival forces were scattered, captives secured, and the Archon's supremacy reaffirmed. Yet victory was never permanent. Commorragh demanded constant adaptation, relentless vigilance, and continuous refinement of tactics. The predators thrived not only on violence but on the perfection of control. As the warp shimmered faintly across the horizon, rivers disappeared into the shadows, leaving only the echoes of terror behind. Ordinary humans awoke to the aftermath, sensing fear and loss without understanding the orchestration behind it. The Drukhari remained unseen, their mastery over fear and shadows leaving an indelible mark on both the city and the minds of those who survived. Commorragh's night stretched onward, alive with anticipation, hidden maneuvers, and the promise of new hunts. The predators had dominated this cycle, but tomorrow demanded renewed precision, new strategies, and continued control over fear and obedience. Survival and supremacy were never guaranteed. They were earned through ruthless skill, patience, and mastery of the art of terror. Tonight, the hunter's eclipse concluded. Tomorrow, the dance would resume, as unyielding and lethal as ever. Commorragh breathed its eternal darkness, twisting and alive with malevolent intent. Its spires pierced the warped sky like jagged fangs, corridors curled like serpents, and every shadow harbored both predator and prey. Tonight, the city was more than a home to the Drukhari. It was a stage, a labyrinth, and a weapon, each of its countless pathways choreographed for terror. Atop a jagged spire, the Archon observed. The remnants of rival Kabbalah still lingered, desperate and disoriented. Every alley, every corridor, and every rooftop had been mapped in his mind, every movement of his enemies predicted and accounted for. Rivers and Tales warriors moved like extensions of his will, orchestrating a symphony of fear, pain, and death. The city itself became a weapon, bending to his command with subtle precision. Below, the streets seethed with chaos. Captives scrambled blindly, pursued by lethal hunters who emerged from darkness with surgical efficiency. Tales warriors descended from elevated walkways, augmented limbs striking with blinding speed. Bolter fire erupted, blades flashed, and screams echoed, fading into the shadows before any help could arrive. Ordinary humans could only perceive fragments of the terror, unable to comprehend the artistry and orchestration behind it. The Archon's mind was a web of strategy, each thread carefully woven with intelligence, foresight, and ruthlessness. Hidden sensors, loyal spies, and intercepted communications fed him a constant stream of data. Every whisper of dissent, every hint of rebellion, was analyzed and neutralized before it could threaten his supremacy. Knowledge, combined with terror, made him absolute. A squad of Rivers cornered the last fleeing remnants of a rival Kabbalah. Poisoned blades cut paths through resistance, and the Archon's orders guided every movement, ensuring no escape. The labyrinthine streets of Commorragh funneled panic exactly where it needed to go, into ambushes meticulously prepared, into death that arrived with lethal elegance. Yet the Archon's vigilance remained unbroken. Commorragh was a city of endless surprises. Hidden rival operatives, warp-infused anomalies, and treacherous terrain could undo even the most careful strategy. The predators had to remain relentless, calculating, and precise. Only through mastery of fear, cruelty, and coordination could dominance endure. The predators moved with unerring precision. Rivers guided terrified captives, Tales warriors patrolled above, and the city itself shifted in subtle ways to amplify fear and reinforce control. Commorragh's streets echoed with screams, footsteps, and the hum of warp energy, all absorbed into a living mechanism of domination. Ordinary humans would awaken to the aftermath, sensing loss and terror but understanding nothing of the orchestration that had unfolded. The Archon's laughter echoed faintly through the spires, low and deliberate, a proclamation of power and menace. It was a reminder to all, supremacy in Commorragh was not given. It was seized through intelligence, patience, and ruthless execution. Every captured operative, every failed rebellion, every terrified soul reinforced the predator's grip on the city. Hours passed. Rival forces had been scattered, captives secured, and the pathways of control reinforced. But even in victory, the Archon knew the hunt would never truly end. Commorragh demanded constant vigilance, relentless strategy, and the continual perfection of cruelty. Every night brought new challenges, new prey, and new opportunities to refine the art of fear. From the pinnacle of the spire, he observed distant warp glows on the horizon. They were a reminder that the city was only one part of a larger universe filled with potential threats and opportunities. The Drukhari thrived in the unseen gaps between perception and reality, shaping power from terror and dominance from fear. Shadows, whispers, and pain were instruments, wielded with unmatched skill. As the city fell into relative silence, the rivers vanished into the labyrinthine alleys, leaving behind only echoes of terror. Tales warriors retreated to patrol points high above, their forms disappearing into shadow. Ordinary humans would awaken to a city that felt empty, but every corner, every pathway, and every spire had been touched by the precision and cruelty of the predators. Tonight, the eclipse of fear had been absolute. Rival Kabbalah were scattered, captives were bound, and the Archon's supremacy was uncontested. Commorragh, eternal and unyielding, had absorbed and amplified every act of control, every calculated strike, and every scream of panic. Yet the predators knew that this was only one cycle, one night among countless, and the city demanded perpetual vigilance. The Archon's eyes glinted as he looked across the horizon. The city below breathed in quiet anticipation, aware of both predator and prey, of power and fear, of life and death intertwined in a continuous cycle. Commorragh would never rest, nor would its hunters. The Drukhari thrived in the eternal darkness, shaping shadows, orchestrating terror and perfecting cruelty as both art and weapon. As the first hints of distant warp energy flickered in the sky, the Archon vanished into the shadows, leaving only the weight of fear, the lingering echo of control, and the certainty that Commorragh's night and the hunter's supremacy would continue indefinitely. The city remained alive, breathing, and unbroken, and the Drukhari would forever dance in the shadows, architects of terror, masters of cruelty, and predators without end.